Welcome to the Fill Your Cups podcast. Hey, y'all. Thanks for joining us today. We just celebrated our 1 month anniversary on July 3rd. So in efforts of helping us celebrate, we would love, now that we've had 5 episodes, I can't believe it, but we've had 5 episodes. If you have listened to one or more of those episodes, could you please pick your favorite one and send it to somebody who you think would benefit from it?
Yes.
You may be liking the Let's Get Deep ones like today's, or you might be liking the Bit of Fun or how-to episodes, but whichever one that you liked best, we just want you to send it to someone that you think could benefit from it.
Yes, we would really appreciate that. You know, everyone deserves gifts on their anniversaries. 1 month anniversary.
Yeah, this is your gift to us.
Yes, your gift to us, exactly. Well, guys, in our 6th episode, that is today's, it is a Let's Get Deep episode. We will be talking about who you really are and if you even know that person. We're going to brainstorm some ways to really dive deep into ourselves to know who we want to be and share the ways that you can do that. Let's dive in. Good morning, guys. We want to start with what's filling our cup. What do you have to drink, Morgan?
Yeah, I think we're twinning today because I just have water.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm about to go on a big trip, and I'll probably be drinking lots because it's an all-inclusive.
Yeah.
So
And it's going to be hot.
And it's going to be hot. So right now I'm just staying hydrated.
Mm-hmm. If you guys are listening to this on a Monday, make sure to text Morgan now and ask her if she's super sunburned and ask her if she's hydrated. That's the hope.
I hope yes. No to the first and yes to the second.
Me too. Well, yes, I'm also drinking water, but I yet again have one of my little lemonade packets in there because I can't just drink plain water.
Oh, I wish I had one of those.
I have one. Do you want one?
That's okay.
They're
Thank
so
you.
they're so good. I'll leave it with you.
We already started.
I'll leave it with you.
Yeah, so that's what's filling our cups. I know we wanted to give a shout out, and this is our second Let's Get Deep episode. So we are really excited about this. We actually got a lot of feedback from our first one, and we were a little nervous. I know you were especially nervous because it was kind of a more vulnerable episode for us, and we got a ton of positive feedback, people telling us that it was their favorite one so far, and just really building us up, honestly, after that one.
Seriously.
Filling our cups afterward. And we wanted to shout out specifically our friend Courtney, who shared this episode on her Instagram story, and she messaged us, DM'd us.
Yes.
So just so y'all know, you can DM us anytime and let us know what you're thinking. If it's not something that you want to put publicly on your story, totally get that.
Yeah, you do not have to.
Just give us a DM. Several people did that after this episode, but Courtney, I especially wanted to shout out because she DM'd us. I looked at the time, 9:27 a.m. I think that we scheduled these to go out at what, 6 a.m.?
6 a.m., yep.
So it literally had not even been 4 hours, and she had
Yeah.
already listened to the episode.
She had listened to it before I did. And I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It gave me a huge confidence booster to listen to it, though, because I was nervous.
Yeah, it made me feel so good. And she specifically said, I woke up running late and feeling very stressed about the day for no good reason, which we've all been there.
Of course.
But on my drive to my first errand of the day, I listened to the episode, and it 100% flipped my mood, and now I feel unstoppable. Thank you both. We love you,
We
Courtney.
love you.
And we are so happy to hear that you got something from that episode and felt unstoppable because you totally are.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Just wanted to give you a shout out, Courtney.
We love you so much.
Yes. And if you DM us or share on your story or something like that, you might be the next shout out.
Ooh, incentive.
Yeah. Now
Well,
into our episode for the day.
Yes, let's get into it. So today we are diving a little bit deeper. We're going to really try to figure out who we are, how we figure out who we are, and kind of what identity we want to embody. So I feel like this became a topic for me. I read Atomic Habits at the beginning of the year. I think I've talked about that a few times already. And the literal first piece of advice is he says that in order to make a habit actually stick, you have to have an identity-based outcome.
Yeah.
And it was all, so basically that meant that in order for a habit to stick, it had to be because of who you are and not because of what the habit is doing for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I read that, it was saying that you needed to know what your identity was. And I was like, I have no idea who I am. I truly felt I did not know who I was. And it had me thinking that I knew how other people would describe me, because I kind of challenged myself and said, like, okay, well, let's figure out who you are then, and, in my own head. And all I could think of was words that other people used to describe me. And while I was doing that, I was like, okay, I feel like none of those are actually words that I would use for my, like, actual personal self. And so while doing that, it just made me realize, like, I truly had no idea who I was. So I decided to kind of make a list of how other people did describe me versus how I described me. And then I just kind of went from there.
Like, you did that when you read the book?
Yeah, when I read the book.
Okay.
It was right after I read the book. It's actually, like, literally my first tab is in there. That's like 40 pages in. Because I was like, wow, something to think about. Because I really had no idea what my identity was. I had never thought about it. I feel like for a lot of people, like, if you know who you are strongly, then I am, first of all, so jealous of you. And second of all, I'm so happy for you, because for me, it's something that I do not resonate with.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I felt like my personality has become my identity. And maybe I do think that they go hand in hand, but I think I was just leaning all the way on my personality and how other people saw me. And that's who I just thought that I was. And I think that led a lot into my uncertainness about life and like what path I'm going to go down. And I don't know, everyone gets at that point at some point, like, what am I kind of doing?
Yeah.
And I was at that point, but more of a who am I kind of situation. So that's like really how I thought of it. And then I brought it up to you, and you said that we could do the episode, and so I was really excited.
Yeah, I love Atomic Habits, and I would recommend anybody to read it. I think it can be life-changing just in the tiny things, and that's what we're all about, right? Small but impactful ways to fill your life. And so I feel like it's really great at showing you how to make tiny changes that make a really big difference. But you are right. I went back, because I haven't read it as recently as you. I did go back today when I was prepping for the episode, and read about the identity portion, which really is at the very beginning. He talks about the way that you identify is going to make a big difference on whether or not you stick to a habit. And so we can get more into that later, but I know for me it really stuck with things, just like the phraseology of, I really want to be this type of person, versus saying I am this type of person. Or not even really I'm working on becoming this type of person. So as everybody knows, after listening to several episodes of this podcast, I'm really big on how language impacts the things that you believe about yourself and believe about
everything.
Yeah, your experience in this world. And so I think that it's a really, really great book, and I think that it's really good that it wasn't quite exactly, I feel like what he was telling us to do in that moment, because he was talking about how to take what identity you want to become and then build the habits to become that. And you're almost going even to the root of that and saying, actually, what even is
my identity?
The identity that I want. How do I even figure out who it is that I want to be?
Yes.
And then how do I become that person?
It was exactly that. Yeah, it was like his first step, and I was like, actually, let's figure out part A of your first step, though, because I don't know part A.
Yeah.
And I think some people do, and like I said, like, if you know who you are, like, to the core, I know several people who I would say that they are who they are. And it's not that I feel like I'm not me, but I just, who am I?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think there's this misalignment and dissonance that happens when who we want to be is not the same as who we are now, and it makes us feel really just honestly disappointed and unfulfilled and empty.
Yeah.
And so I feel like sometimes who we want to be doesn't match up with who we are now, because we are trying to be the person that everybody already knows us to be.
Yep.
When a different identity feels like something that you want to be more so than who you are now, it can be really hard, because it may not match up to what other people already think that you are.
Yeah, or like what your life already looks like. And I mean, you make so many decisions already at the point where you might be listening to this episode. Obviously, like, you've made so many life decisions already.
Yeah.
So it's hard to change at the drop of a hat, and that's not what we're saying to do at all.
No.
But I do feel like what you're saying, it's so easy to get kind of like stuck in a bubble or caught up in the bubble of thinking that you know who you are because of how other people know you.
Yeah.
And you really start to resonate with that identity portion of yourself. So I think that is so great and exactly what you're saying. And you really need to know like your own values, and you need to know what you do want for your life and who you do want to be, and be able to kind of put it into place.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people struggle with this, especially in their 20s. Obviously, I'm at the tail end of 20s, and you're kind of right in the middle. And a lot of people that listen to our show may not be in that stage of life, but in that 20s to 30s range, I feel like we can get kind of that imposter syndrome of not really knowing exactly what we're doing, that sort of thing, and like, who am I? Do I belong here? And I think that part of this uncomfortability with figuring out who we are and who we want to be and where that gap is also because who we are growing up in our childhood can sometimes, I mean, you change a lot.
Yeah.
And so people that have known you the longest might see you a certain way. And so it makes it really hard for you to let go of those things, of the ways that everybody sees you.
Yeah.
And the things that you've identified with for
forever.
a long time and just may not be true anymore. I feel like it's like when you walk into a store or specifically like a Target or like a TJ Maxx or somewhere where everywhere you go, their marketing is so good and they can constantly convince you to buy something, even if it wasn't on your list. And I feel like going through life and not really figuring out, okay, what are my core values and what shapes my identity? Who do I want to be? I feel like when we go through life like that and even just have conversations with people or show up to work or show up to events or whatever it is, that when we go and we haven't nailed down what those core values are, it is like walking into a Target or a TJ Maxx without knowing what you're going in for.
It's like
and
shopping
at the
without
end,
a list.
and at the end you come out and you've got a whole thing of notebooks and you're not even a notebook person, or you've got a whole thing of, you've got wine glasses and you already have a million wine glasses at home, or
that feels targeted, Morgan. Just kidding. Just kidding.
I know you love your wine glasses. And hey, but that's part of you.
That's a real part of
It's a part of your identity. No one told you that. Or you come out with a really trendy piece of clothing and then you get home and then you can't find anything that it goes with.
And you're like, I would never wear this out.
Yes, and it's like you just wasted your money and your time getting something that didn't even really match up with what you want, and that's all because you didn't set an intention beforehand. So that's why it's so important, I think, to be consistently reevaluating what your values are and are these still true for you, and if not, what are you moving toward? What's more aligned for you now?
Yeah, I really like that. I like the idea of like the reevaluating.
Yeah.
Because I think that people can forget to do that, like especially me. I love doing these podcasts with you because we're just having a conversation and you say things that I'm like, oh wow, I haven't thought of it that way. And
me too. I love these combos too.
It's fun, but like the reevaluating portion of it, I don't think I've stopped and thought who I was, like what values do I have and who do I feel like I'm comfortable with being and blah, blah, blah. I haven't thought about that like ever. I don't think. Like I don't know. And it could just be because like I'm a little bit older now, or because I am doing like different things with my life now than I was even a year ago. So maybe that's what it really is. And honestly, I wouldn't have picked up Atomic Habits a year ago, and I did. Yeah. And that was the first piece that I was like, whoa. Stop right there. Back up, because I don't know. So first off, we are going to jump into the first step. Let's get rid of the identities that other people have for us. So I want you guys to think about the identities that other people have set onto you, that you feel like when you're thinking of who you are, you feel like that's not actually who you are. That's just who other people say that you are. So a big example for me is I feel like everyone thinks that I'm such an extrovert. And I'm not. I think that I am someone who can be social and I'm good at small talk maybe, even though it makes me want to barf. But I am not actually an extrovert. And I know that you've one time said, like after hanging out with some people several years ago, you were like, yeah, I definitely thought you were an extrovert, but I don't think that you are. And I was like, I don't think I am either. But I always thought that I was.
Yeah.
I always thought that, like, I wanted a ton of people around and that's where I got energy from. And it's totally not. But people always said that it was.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a huge thing that I needed to drop in order to, like,
I do remember that conversation because I think it was when we both lived in Columbia. We were going to the zoo and we left a group function. And I want to say we got in the car. Tell me if I'm making this up. I want to say we got in the car and I was like over the moon, hyped. Probably my heart was beating fast. And I'm like, that was so fun. I had such a good time. Da-da-da. I was so energized. And then you got in the car and you kind of did one of those sighs, like the...
like, oh...
like, glad that's over. But not in a way of you had a bad time, but more just like, I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of, we were talking about it. And I was like, yeah, I don't know why, but growing up, and this goes back to what we were saying about how in childhood people form a lot of ideas and opinions about who you are. And so it's kind of hard to dissociate with those. It's hard to unattach to that because... I would say I know you pretty well.
Yes.
And so if I say you're an extrovert, you're like, yeah, maybe I am.
Yeah.
And
like, oh, probably I love to talk. Like,
yeah.
I probably am.
Yeah. But I remember being like, yeah, definitely always thought you were an extrovert, but I really don't think you are. And you're like, I really don't think I am. And just that even if you enjoy being around people and all that you just, it drains you a little bit differently than me, for instance. And the way that you fill your energy back up is with alone time and just time spent recharging. And for me, I get a lot of energy when I'm around people. And then when I get alone, I mean, I think I do need alone time and recharging.
Everyone does.
Yes. But when I get alone, that's when I start to feel like drained, if that makes sense.
No, I'm totally complete opposite. But I think a lot of people would think that I was an extrovert because... that's how teachers would describe you and your parents and, like, you're my sister. I think for years you would have called me an extrovert until we had an outing and you were like, no, you're not.
I feel like the trap that I fall into with the former idea of what people think about me is... I feel like this is going to sound really cheesy and maybe even braggy at first, but let me explain. Okay, give me a chance. So people in the past have told me a lot of times... that they feel like, oh, you just have it all together, or that type of phrase. And growing up, I was very much a clean, responsible kid. That was something I very much prided myself on.
Yes.
And the trap that it leads me into in adulthood and the toxic mindset that it leads to is that in the scope of being independent or having it all together, quote unquote, which I really fucking don't, is that I fall into this trap of never asking for help and not being transparent with people, which I feel like people maybe wouldn't realize about me, but I fall into a trap of putting on a show because I think that everybody expects me to, quote unquote, have it together.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I act like I'm doing better than I am or that sort of thing, or I just never ask for help because I'm in the effort of remaining independent or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've just realized as an adult, and I'm really still working on this. It's really hard for me. But I've realized as an adult that I value being transparent and authentic way more than I value being independent or having it all together. And I would much rather, this is kind of morbid, but when I die, that people would say, I just remember Morgan to be so authentic and so relatable and always there to, talk about real stuff and willing to share, like that sort of thing, rather than saying, oh yeah, I just remember Morgan never needed to ask for help and she was so independent and she had it all together. I just don't think I value that. I don't think that I want people to think of me that way. And I think that it's hard because I've operated in this mindset for so long of my life. It is really hard for me to let go of that. But I think that when I say things like the language we were talking about, I'm a transparent person, or I am someone who's not afraid to ask for help, instead of saying I'm trying to be better about asking for help, I want to say I'm not afraid to ask for help. I want that to be, I'm like, drawing a line in the sand and I'm going to ask for help, or I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm going to be honest when people ask me how I'm doing, or that sort of thing. So just like, I don't know, kind of going off of your example of being extroverted and people kind of expecting you to be that way, and how for a second there it probably felt a little bit uncomfortable or dissonant or unaligned for you.
Yeah,
to
completely.
Not be constantly doing extroverted things or filling your calendar with people because you need that downtime. But it's kind of going along the lines of that for so long I've operated in this mindset of a value that I don't even really truly have.
Yes, I love that so much. And truly, people might say that about you. Like, if you were to ask somebody that you know and say, use 3 words to describe me, they might put all together in there. Or, like, so totally organized. Like, that might be something that they say. And I like that you said that, because that is an identity that you don't feel is you.
Yeah.
But other people do, so you're going to unattach it from yourself, because that's not who you are, and instead you're going to go with the values that you want to embody, and that you have a higher, like, respect for right now.
Yeah. Just that I think would align better with the life that I'm trying to create.
Yeah, and who you want to be. And you do a really good job of that. I know you started posting on Instagram and doing, like, all your Beachbody stuff a little while ago.
Yeah.
And I remember several times, you've been doing it for, how long do you think you've been doing that now? Like, on Instagram actively? 2 years?
No, I started in 2021.
Holy crap.
So,
years?
probably, like, end of 2021. I started, like, my health journey with Beachbody, now it's Body, but in March of 2020, and then after I had, like, really great success personally, I started coaching others in really, like, the following year. So, 3 years, March 2021.
Yeah. I just remember whenever you very first put that up, I would have people ask me who, like, knew us both. They would ask me and say, like, does Morgan actually eat that? Or,
oh my gosh!
And it's funny because you don't expect realness on Instagram and things like that. And I remember being like, yeah, of course she does. And so I think that's really cool, because even at that point, probably quickly after you read Atomic Habits,
seriously,
without realizing it, maybe, but you were being transparent and real, and like, yeah, of course you do. Like, like, the life that you live on Instagram is real to the life you live here, and I think that you do a really good job of that.
Thank
never
you.
feel like, there are some people that I see their posts, or there's, like, jokes going around now of, like, oh, here's a picture I posted. Here was what was actually going on.
Yeah.
So, so I think you do a very good job of being transparent, and I would use it as a word to describe you.
Oh, thank you so much. People probably feel differently than me, but I actually feel sometimes like it's easier to be transparent publicly on a platform like that than really in a deep emotional setting like this sometimes, and like letting on what's actually going on. And I don't know why, because I think that a lot of people feel opposite, but I guess I just feel like, I mean, at first posting stuff like that was a little bit nerve-wracking, but at the end of the day, I could
probably goes into your thing of being independent and not wanting to ask for help. When it's one-on-one, it's a very, like, personal conversation.
Exactly.
When you're posting it, it's still personal, but it's no one's going to make you talk deeply about it. No one's gonna be like, wait, let's dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know. That's interesting. I'll have to think more on that.
Yeah, definitely do.
Yeah.
So I feel like the first step for me was getting rid of the identities that other people have put onto us. So I had so many other ones that when I was thinking, like, oh, what are 3 words my friends would use to describe me? If I felt like those words were not actually who I was, like, deep down, and I was like, no, that's not really who I am, those were the words that I was looking to get rid of, and to like make an actual physical change with that. So I want you guys to kind of think about that. What are some words that people used to associate you with that you don't feel like actually speak true to you? That's our first step. Second step is going to be stop giving in to what you are not. So this is a quote that James Clear in Atomic Habits had in there. And he says that in time, you begin to resist certain actions because of who you are not. So if you're telling things to yourself, phrases like, I'm bad at directions, or I'm not a good reader, or I'm not strong, those things can hold you back because you're constantly thinking that you can't do things along those categories because you're not that. Mm-hmm. Does that kind of make sense at all?
Yeah, no, I think that it makes sense.
So phrases as in, I am not good at directions. I am not a good reader. I am not strong. I want you guys to stop saying those things because those can hold a lot and they can hold us back. In Atomic Habits, there's actually a quote where he says, in time, you begin to resist doing certain actions because that's not who you are. Mm-hmm. So I read that and I was like, no, that's just not true. Like, what are you talking about? I feel like I actually wanted to say that as a disclaimer earlier that when you're going to hear us talk, you might think we're completely crazy and you might be like, oh my God, they're just very naive. Like, this is not how it works. It is. If you can get all the way through this with us, this is like literally how I kind of figured out who I was. So anyway, back onto the step 2, stop giving into who you are not. So a huge one for me was I am like not good at geography and I am not good at like places and things. That has been associated with me since literally probably like middle school because I'm convinced that I did not learn all 50 states in elementary school. So then never in my life until last year did I try to learn them. I just went through my entire life not knowing my states. It was a funny haha. It was like don't ask Bailey, she won't know. And I was like, yeah, straight up, I won't know.
Yeah.
And so after I read this book, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like a huge thing for me. And I don't know any of these things. So if someone were to ask me directions, I literally can't help them because I've never tried to figure these things out.
Yeah.
I don't like at the beginning of the year, I did not know how to tell north, west, south, east, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I could do it if I looked at a compass.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was just something that I have never even tried to learn because I always said I was bad at it. So when I kind of took that association and started saying, no, that's not accurate, I do like, not that I am good at geography, but I'm not bad at it because I'm going to start learning it. You know what I mean?
Is that something that was like important to you?
Yes, it actually was. because it wasn't because that was a part of my identity that I didn't feel like I was associated with, but it was more because it was legitimately holding me back. For me saying I was bad at geography, I never tried to learn anything about it. So I could never, ever move forward into a person who was reliable because I don't know directions, so I can't tell you how to get there. Like, it was kind of something like that. Or, like, I would say I'm a bad cook. So then I just never cook, and all of it's on Mason because I'm not cooking. Like, it's bad.
Yeah.
But I never tried to because I just always said I was bad at it.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to get rid of those thoughts of what you are not.
Yeah.
Just because it can hold you back so much.
Yeah, I definitely relate with the cooking one. I feel like I say all the time that I'm not a good cook, and it's not that I'm not a good cook, it's just that I have not taken the effort to be a cook, become a good cook.
Right? It can get hard. So yeah, I want you guys to take away those identities that were put on you a long time ago that says that you are not something. And I want you to take that out, even if it's not important to you. It is not important to me to be known as a good cook. Not important.
Yeah.
But it is important to me to not tell myself that one of my identities is that I'm a bad cook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Just step number 3. This is going to be one of our biggest ones. It is make a list of the words that you wish described you. I want you guys to figure out who you do want to be. Make those lists. And I'm not talking about qualities as far as I want to be rich or I want to be skinny or I want to be blonde. Like, I don't want you guys to pick those qualities. I want you guys to pick real qualities, as in, like, do you want to be more organized? Do you want to be someone who's kinder to strangers? Do you want to be someone who is maybe more flexible? I want you guys to kind of pick things like that. Did you kind of have some starter words?
Yeah, so I talked about transparency and authenticity, but really the person I'm becoming is a very present, positive, and healthy person. I feel like with the healthy part, I'm already kind of in the midst of that identity change. I do feel like I would tell someone today that I'm an overall pretty healthy person.
Would you have said that like 5 years ago?
No.
Exactly.
No. And that's truly the biggest thing about Atomic Habits or tiny changes is the coolest thing is I wouldn't have told you then that I was an unhealthy person, but had I done something every single day that was really unhealthy for me, by now I would be an unhealthy person. Whereas then, even if I wasn't an unhealthy or healthy person, once I started doing small, healthy person things every day, now I would say I am a healthy person.
Yeah.
But the other things that I still am working on is being very present and positive. I feel like that present part goes into the transparent and authentic mindset that I'm trying to have. I really want to be with people physically and mentally. Well, mentally when I'm with them, I want to actually be there with people and sitting with them and whatever it is that we're doing. And so there are some things that I am working on, which we'll talk about here soon. But yeah, I would say the words that I really want to describe myself is present, positive, and healthy.
I love those words. Those are very good words.
Thanks.
I think that my words were reliable. And this is probably like the third episode I've talked about this in. Because I want to be reliable so freaking bad, and I'm working on it.
What does reliable mean?
Reliable to me, that's a great question. That goes into identity for me. So reliable to me meant that like when I say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. It meant that I was not flaking on plans. To me, a reliable person is someone that you say, oh, if I call Bailey, I know that she will not like back out of this. I know that she will do it 100%. I know that she'll be there for me. That is the kind of person I wanted to be, because I feel like I have accidentally fallen into an identity of someone who is always late, or someone who, oh, she might not be there because sometimes
like flaky. Or,
yeah. And I feel like I fully fell into those identities because those were the things I was doing all the time of my own, like it was my own fault. No one else was making me late, but it was something that I felt like I would use to describe myself, that I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be a reliable person. And so that is a huge word for me this year. It's like my word of 2024.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I'm really trying hard at it. So if you're listening to this and you're like, Bailey is not reliable, I am working on it, okay? My next word that I really wanted to be was, I put fit. And I guess that I should maybe say healthy instead. But I really wanted to be someone who was strong and yeah, healthy. Healthy was a better word, I think. So with those two words and with your words, then you go into the next step, which is...
Prove it.
Prove it. Yep. Do it. You got to put in the work at this point. There is a quote again in Atomic Habits, and this was a huge one for me. It says, the more you repeat a behavior, the more you reinforce the identity associated with that behavior, which means, like you said earlier, about, if you were eating unhealthy every single day, you will be an unhealthy person.
Yeah.
If you are going to the gym every single day, you will then be someone who would identify yourself as a gym rat or something like that. So some examples for me are, when you read every day, you embody the identity of a reader. When you wake up early every day, you embody the identity of an early bird. On the not so great habits, if you vape every day, you embody the identity of a smoker. When you spend hours on TikTok every day, you embody the identity of a couch potato.
Yeah.
You know
Or
what I
going with mine, maybe someone that's not so present. Because if you're spending all your time on TikTok, you're probably not a super present. Oh gosh, I feel like I just really called some people out, and I did not mean to. I'm not on TikTok, so maybe I just feel very free to say that. But
No, I mean, I'm on TikTok, but I think you would say I'm present in conversations with you, right?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I guess maybe it's more like if you're on social media while you're around people or something.
Oh,
but-
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And people do go on TikTok around other people all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. I feel like I also really like this point about proving it to yourself, because it kind of goes along with our whole fill your cups philosophy, because I feel like there's a confidence cup, and when you, every single time that you kind of keep a promise to yourself, I've heard someone say this, I'm sure, but, or maybe they said it with buckets, not cups. I don't know. But every time, so for you wanting to become fit and healthy and just like, that is a value for you, and that's somebody that you want to be. Every single time that you go to the gym, you're kind of dropping a drop into that cup.
Yeah.
And convincing yourself that that's the type of person that you are and
Yeah.
solidifying that. Now, on the flip side, every time that you maybe choose something less healthy, like say you have a dinner planned to make and then you're like, actually, let's just go get McDonald's, then it does take a little bit out of that cup.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
the point here is, and I think he says this in Atomic Habits when I was rereading it, but the point here is like, it's kind of like a voting system, you know.
He does say that.
Yeah, like you don't need every single action to be in your favor of whatever this identity is that you're looking for. You just need a majority.
Yeah.
So if you are more often than not doing something that embodies a healthy person, then you are drop by drop becoming a more healthy person.
Yeah.
So I do really like this. One more example that he has in the book that I love, and then I'll stop talking about the book. But
this whole episode's like basically about the book. 'Cause this is where I came up with it.
yeah, something that I love is when, and I didn't even see it in that chapter about identity, but just when he talks about habits, is that he gives the example of an airplane and how when an airplane sets their destination, they set it for certain coordinates, and that, let's say that they're going to Washington, D.C. or something. Oh, this is going to be really bad because I am like you and have not done my best on geography. Or really, this is kind of mathematics. But anyway, so they set the coordinates for Washington, D.C. or whatever. Well, if they accidentally set the coordinates just 1 degree off, that's however many miles, tons of miles, they will end up in a totally different place. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's say that it's 1 degree east, Washington, D.C. They could end up, in the middle of the United States, like in the Carolinas, or I don't know where, Maine, somewhere really east. I don't know. Totally different place. But that kind of goes along with these little incremental habits that every time you prove to yourself that you are becoming that identity that you value and you've said, this is the identity that I'm aligning with right now, then you get closer and closer. And the more that you prove to yourself that you're not doing that, the further you get from Washington, D.C. and the closer you get to Maine or wherever it is, you know? So it's just important to, you know, have these small wins and
prove it to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like whenever I first read that portion of the book, that was where I first was like, this man is crazy. This man is like, I don't know what he's talking about. But I was like, it's just not true. And then he had an example in there. I think he had the reader example. Like, if you read each night, you then become a reader. And I was like, wait, that's weird, because I would actually describe myself as a reader. Like, if someone said, what do you do for fun? Like, I would totally be like, oh, I like to read. 2 years ago, I would have never said that. But because one day I just picked up a book and then started talking about it with my friends and got really into it, I became a reader. I had never read a book before that. Since freaking like Junie B. I used to say Junie B. Jones were my favorite books. I was 23 saying Junie B. Jones was my favorite book.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
do still love her. But
Not Twilight?
no, I read Twilight for the first time in 4th grade. And then I read it again last year.
Huh.
I did say Harry Potter sometimes.
Oh, okay.
But that was like a cop answer, and I meant it when I said Junie B. Jones. But it's the kind of thing where I would have never said that for myself, and then I was thinking about qualities that I would use to describe me, and I was thinking about a reader, and I was like, wait, James Clear is onto something. If you really do just do something so many times, you do embody that personality. That does become a part of your identity, and I thought that was really cool. So I want you guys to like really think about the words that you wish could describe you, and then think about the actions that you can do to kind of follow those up. So for me, a reliable person is making sure that I am putting things into my calendar. So I still mess up sometimes, but I now have a calendar that I follow. Didn't have that last year. Didn't have that at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
have it now because I'm like, wait, let me check my calendar. Or I'll like literally text someone back and be like, you know what? I'm not 100% sure, but let me get back to you on this. Whereas before I would have just been like, yeah, let's do it. With 3 other things I had to do also. And then I'm going to have to cancel on somebody and I'm the worst. So those were really things for me that, you know, super became true for me once I really started following those habits.
Yeah, I have a couple of things that I would say count in this category of proving it to yourself or
Let's hear
that
them.
kind of thing. But so when I talked about being a positive person, I've really been noticing this in the last few years that I just want to be I don't want to be someone that's known for complaining. That's what I don't. I don't want people to leave and feel drained because I was just complaining and negative, and not that sometimes you don't need to vent. That's not true. But I don't want to be someone that is known as negative, and so I've been becoming a positive person. So one thing that I do to try to value or put that value of positivity that's really easy and really small is every week I literally put it on my calendar to send some sort of recognition or encouragement to coworkers. That's how I maintain that in my
you told me about this. I love that.
Thanks. Yeah, I really like it. We have a really good system right now, or that they just developed in our company, where we can shout people out on like a leaderboard thing. And so I was like, well, that's a really easy thing that every Friday at 3:00 I just have it a recurring event that I go on there, I pick 2 or 3 people, and I say thank you for the week or something.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I have done with this is simply just telling people that I want to complain less. And so whenever we're on our walks, I always talk about these walks, but
they're good walks.
Yeah, but when we're on walks, a lot of the time it's really easy for me and Jared to just settle into complaining about whatever it is at work that day, or whatever it is that a friend did that was inconvenient, or whatever it is that
It's happening at home that is annoying.
Yeah, a family member said and was really rude or something like that.
Yeah.
And instead of doing that, just kind of focusing on other things. And so I know we talked about that quite a bit when we were talking about like comparison to past selves and things like that, but that's another thing. I will say another thing that I really think helps when proving something to yourself is setting yourself up for success by filling your time, especially your free time, with things that align with whatever identity that you're trying to develop.
Absolutely.
So, for example, now I don't want people to feel overwhelmed by this. If anybody, if you're like me, then as soon as you decide you want to do something, then like this happened with our podcast, you decide you want to do something, and instead of starting with the most simple, basic step 1 task, you're like, I need to do this,
Balls
that.
to the walls.
Yeah, you're like, okay, I need to start a podcast. Okay, we need to make a website. We need to make an Instagram. We need to get this. We need to get that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, chill.
Yeah.
Let's just start figuring out how to record, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's the same way when you decide that you want to change something about your identity.
It goes, you feel like you have to do a 180.
Yeah, and so for you, for example, you might be like, okay, I want to become more reliable. What do I need to do? I need to get a planner. I need to get a calendar. I need to get the, and some of those things don't even make sense for you. The first step might just be putting the tasks you already do on your calendar so that you can see them, so that when someone asks if you can do something, you don't double book yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yes.
that's a very simple thing you could do right now. But anyway, so all that to say, don't overwhelm yourself with this, but as you get closer to the person you're trying to become, for example, me, like with my health journey, I started with just the morning workouts. That was something tangible that I could do. A 25-minute workout in the morning in my living room, I can do that. So I started with that, and also really like drinking my water, and water was a big thing that I would have like a reminder on my phone, or I would ask somebody to hold me accountable, that sort of thing. But then you can start to build on those things.
Yes.
And when you embody, let's say, being a healthy person, fill your free time with things that a healthy person would do or listen to.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I listen to a lot of podcasts that are related to health. I don't think you have to do this to be a healthy person, but when I started listening to them, it made me feel a little bit more attached to that identity.
Yeah.
And it made me feel like, okay, I actually am becoming this person. I am a healthy person.
Yeah.
And instead of being like, oh, I'm really working on my health, or I'm trying to lose weight, or, you know, I am a healthy person. Here's the proof. I work out 20 minutes a day. I drink 100 ounces of water a day. And one of my favorite podcasts is about nutrition, you know, like, so filling your free time with those things. And then also, you know, that prioritizing friendships and relationships that also align with that identity. I think that's really, really cool when you can find people that you really align with there and just
prioritizing during that time period that you're working on that.
Yes, for sure. It's almost like you're saying it just one step at a time. That's really all you have to do. And that's all we're wanting you to do too. Because over time, like you said, once you do start to embody kind of that identity. So with I wanted to be fit and healthy, I immediately got a gym membership. And I've been to the gym on and off for years now. Everyone does. And then I stopped going eventually because I've never thought of myself as someone who was a fit person, who was a strong person. I just thought of myself as someone who was going to the gym. So with that, once I started doing that.
Wait, that is such a good distinction. I never really thought of that. But yeah, instead of thinking of yourself as somebody who goes to the gym, thinking of yourself as an athlete or as a fit person,
as a gym girly.
Person. As a gym girly.
As a gym girly. Sorry. That's what I like to say for myself. But when that did happen, I was interested in hearing how to eat healthier eventually, you know? And then once I was looking into that became a lot of my TikTok things. And then I was interested in, what's a correct form for how to do these exercises so I make sure I'm getting the most? And then that became a thing. And then what is what's the best way to really gain muscle? And then I started to eat a lot of protein. So it really is just one step at a time. And like with a podcast, I found a podcast that I was really into that was about someone my age who was also working out and doing things. So it just slowly starts taking over your interests. And so I keep going back to this reading example, but if you're someone who doesn't read at all but you really want to be a reader, if you start with reading one chapter every night, that is how I started. Not with the
intention.
Yeah, not with the intention of being a reader, but the intention to just finish a book, I think because all my friends were reading it. I just told myself I'm just going to read one chapter a night and go from there. And then as I got more interested in the book, I started reading way more than one chapter a night. And then I finished that book. Someone else recommends a different book. I'm I'm going to read that. I start again with my whole one chapter a night. But then eventually I just want to read and read and read and read because I'm so into the book and I'm so into how it's making me feel and it's so exciting and I'm so connected with my friends on Goodread and blah, blah, blah. That very quickly became a part of my identity.
Yeah. One more example with us that I just thought of too is with this podcast. I feel like I remember us at the beginning talking and we wanted to do this. We were we really want to start a podcast. And it reminds me of you saying, I really want to go to the gym. And I feel like we kept talking about how we want to start a podcast, but would anyone listen to it? Or would anyone care what we have to say? Or do I even have anything to say? And
I said that so many times too. I think every time we'd meet, I'd be I'm nervous.
Yeah, I didn't want to call that out without you saying
it. Was me.
But yeah, you kept telling me those things. And I'm thinking about it. And I think part of it is that we didn't really think of ourselves as podcasters.
No, we didn't.
Because we didn't have any proof that we were, right? Yeah. It's not until that you have proof that you are that it's easier to say that. And that's why it's so important from the get-go, before you even before you even achieve the thing that you're wanting to achieve. Because this is an identity, right? Identities are not achievable. They are consistent over time. Or built over time, developed. So when you want to become a podcaster, instead of saying I really want to start a podcast, saying I'm a podcast host. You know, and really claiming that. And the proof will come over time because if you're a podcast host, what are you doing? You're making podcasts. You're releasing, you're figuring out how to record. You're figuring out how to, so I think now, even now, it would feel kind of awkward probably for me to introduce myself to someone and say, hi, I'm Morgan, and then ask what I do and say,
podcast host?
Yeah, I host a podcast, And so I think that that's something interesting, but who knows, let's say a year from now, we've recorded 52 episodes because we're doing one a week. And our bonus book club episodes. So let's say 64.
Goodness.
52 plus 12. So let's say that we've done 64 episodes. We've got a lot of freaking proof that we're podcast hosts.
Yeah.
But before we got into actually making that happen, we had to identify as that from the beginning.
Yeah. I really like that because I wouldn't have thought of that of myself. I don't know if I would have. I know for a fact at the beginning of this, I would not have said I'm a podcaster. And literally before our first episode came out, I was I feel so silly. This is so silly. But now I feel I truly do feel like I'm a podcaster. Like,
Yeah.
I have a podcast with my sister and blah, 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 blah. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like those are one of those things, again, where it's a great example of, like, it's not a lie. If you are really repeating actions and following actions that fall into an identity, you really will embody that.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and you can really identify as that. So, guys, in closing, I really want you to think about these things. And I don't want you to hear me wrong and think that I'm telling you to buy other clothes that people are wearing and to go to the lunch spot that you see is really popular and to dye your hair a color because it's on social media and that's who you want to be. That's not what I'm telling you to do. Those are not identifying qualities, and it will not help you with knowing who you are and who you want to be. I want you guys to choose those deep qualities that you really want to embody and start doing the actions and putting in the work to do that. One of the last quotes I will put you guys through, and I hope you get something out of it, this was my favorite quote, was that habits are not about having something and doing something. They are about becoming someone. I felt like that was really very true. And as we've given with all of our examples now, we know it's true.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree.
Yes, so I hope that this could help someone reflect on who they actually want to be, so that way you can go on and become that person.
Absolutely. Next week, please tune back in and catch us for one of our how-to episodes.
Can't wait. I'm excited for it. See you guys next week.
Cheers!